Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. What's up, friends? Super excited about today's episode. It's a Turquoise Talk episode with business coach, author, and serial entrepreneur, Sarah Greener. And it's a first for the podcast. She's from New Zealand. So this is my first New Zealander for the podcast. She is passionate about businesses, mostly small ones. And for the past 7 years, Sarah has been helping busy, stressed, and overworked business owners transform their business and reignite the passion they had when they started out. Who can relate to that? Growing up in a family that ran a business and a keen entrepreneurial spirit gave Sarah a thorough grounding in the fundamentals. From there, she went on to own and run multiple businesses in New Zealand and overseas. These range from retail through e-commerce businesses where she ran small to medium teams and dealt with the day-to-day operation. Each new business threw up different challenges as she thrived on the constant and never-ending improvement of each business. Despite her natural business drive and knowledge, Sarah still made plenty of mistakes. But here's the thing, there's no learning or growing without mistakes, right? Eventually, she got caught up in the same game most business owners get into, where the passion they once felt for their business becomes all emotion and busy noise. She knows what it feels like to become overwhelmed by the ineffective activity of working in your business rather than on it, and she has helped many businesses exit that cycle. Sarah enjoys providing actionable insights to audience of all sizes to help them put into action immediate ways to strike that necessary balance and stop the overwhelm. For many business owners, we feel, right, we never got enough time for the things that count. And Sarah Greener has developed a framework based on her own business journey to help busy, stressed, and overworked business owners reignite that passion. And we talk all about that today on the episode. So I hope you have your pen and your paper ready and excited to hear my new friend, Sarah Greener from New Zealand. So let's do this. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life, a Remixed podcast. I am your host, Martine Williams, and today's episode, we have another Turquoise Talk guest. Y'all know I love bringing on other entrepreneurs, other mompreneurs to just share their wisdom with us, share their behind the scenes, just casual conversation. Our guest today is Sarah Greener. Did I say that right? Greener?
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Like greener on the other side, but it's not really greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it.
yeah, it's definitely greener in this house, that's for sure.
It is. So Sarah is from New Zealand. I told her she's my first guest from New Zealand. So that's super fun. The beauty of technology, right? Just to be able to connect and meet women I would have never met before had it not been for podcasts and technology. So tell everyone just a little bit about you, your family, and how you got into, becoming a business coach, an author, and serial entrepreneur.
So it's all in the opposite order to the way that it's written, obviously. So kia ora, I'm Sarah, and I am very lucky. I live in the beautiful Bay of Islands, which is in the north of New Zealand, and live up here with my husband, Johnny, and I have a wee girl, Scarlett, who's 10, who probably tells me she's not a wee girl anymore. Let's be honest.
I'm sure she does.
And our cat. And we've been living here for just over 15 years. So before that, my husband and I were living in Thailand. So the way that we kind of got to where we're at, we came back for a sister's wedding and came up to the Bay of Islands and did a cruise, which was a huge amount of fun. We loved it. And at the end, the owner and skipper of the boat said, "Oh, do you know anyone who might be interested in buying this business?" And I went, "Oh, we will." And
Wow.
my then boyfriend, who we weren't even engaged at the time, went, well, we could talk about it. and so we did. And 6 months later, we owned it. So I was 25, I guess, at the time. And so we came back to New Zealand 6 months later and started running the business. And we've been doing it ever since. So we've done that through a recession, so the GFC, and now through COVID as well, which was an interesting experience when you run a tourism business. And then along the way, we acquired some other businesses. So got involved in a booking office, online sales, e-commerce. We've done hospitality, restaurants, and obviously my coaching business.
Yeah.
So the way that I kind of ended up here was having, I think at one point we had 5 businesses. I was working 60 to 100 hours, just had a baby, so she was coming up on a year old, and just really doing the whole hustle. And like, if I just work harder today, someday in the future I'll have some time off with the people I love, and we'll do the things that I love, and we'll have the house that we love, and all those things. And eventually realized that that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
And so kind of started this journey from, 60 hours being a good week and 100 hours being a terrible week, not seeing Johnny, not seeing Scarlett, to kind of extracting myself from that and building a process out of that, thinking it was a Sarah problem, really. And then had a team of 90 people at one point, and realized that I didn't have the skills and tools really to run that team in the way that I wanted to. And so went over to Australia, did a coaching training program that was a 12-month program. And part of that was they required you to train some people that weren't your employees, to coach some people that weren't your employees pro bono. And they ended up turning into clients who wanted to stay on. They were like, "How can we carry on?" And I went, "Yeah, I guess you could pay me for this." And now
I can start another business.
Yeah, sure, let's do this. And and so the Accidental Fifth business has become the thing that I do full time now, which I absolutely love.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I bet, one of the things I love to bring on a conversation is just kind of the messes. So I'm sure with all of these businesses, there were some messes before the success, right? Like what were some things that you've learned along the way, as, even just who you are now and being the business coach that you are now? Like, what are some of those messes you're like, "Oh, I wish I could tell all entrepreneurs this"?
Yeah, I think like still making messes, right? I think that's the thing that people from the outside looking in think, "Oh, well, you coach now, so you must have it all together." Well, I'm still learning. I'm still, the environment in which we operate is constantly changing. And so your business is constantly having to evolve and adapt to that. And so do you. And so I think it was that. I think when I was 25, I did it out of arrogance, I guess, and a bit of ignorance, and that I was 25 and I knew it all and no one could tell me what to do. And kind of just had my head down, working and very focused. So the one thing I would say is keep all the noise out. That the input that you get from the news and from social media feeds and from other people's opinions and inputs as to how your business may or may not go is not helpful. It's generally not positive, and it's not helping you go in the direction that you want. So turn that stuff off. It's just noise would probably be the number one thing. Because when we in the GFC, like, we had people saying, "Oh, well, it's okay if you go bankrupt, you're young, you'll bounce back." And Johnny and I were just like, that's not even on our radar.
Right. Yeah. That's not even that's a non-option. Thanks for that opinion, but that's a non-option for us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like giving up on yourself. I know one of your key focuses is helping people to gain clarity and simplify. And I think as women, we overcomplicate success and we do get confused, and sometimes it's hard to get that clarity. And we know it's super important so that you can drown out the noise. So you can take out, remove the things that are not serving you and keep only the things that are. So how do you help your clients do that? Or what's some advice you have around gaining clarity and simplifying?
Yeah, so I think figuring out what you want, because we're really good at saying what we don't want. So if I say to someone, so what do you want this business to look like? How do you want it to feel for you, 5, 10 years from now? Oh, well, I don't want to be stressed, and I don't want to be broke, and I don't want to be. And so, we're very good at clarifying all the things that we don't want.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to move away from that and towards what you do want unless you've got real clarity on that. So what exactly do you want your business to look like? And you can build anything, which I think is what makes it so hard to choose.
Yeah.
But figure out what it looks like for you. Like, I've learned through trial and error that I don't want a team of 90 employees. Like, now I just think of that and kind of shudder. Like, we worked through it and it wasn't what I want. So I want a much smaller team. So get really clear on what type of business do you have to run. It doesn't have to be multiple 7 figures or 8 or 9 or whatever we're talking about today. It doesn't have to have 100 employees. Your name doesn't need to be on a building. Like, what would work for you? Because I think as mums, we set out to build these businesses to serve this kind of freedom piece for the people that we love, right? In terms of our family. And then we get so caught up in trying to fit into the box that everyone else says your business should, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. And, you work all weeks and you try to juggle big school holidays with kids and it doesn't work. It's set up for a man with a wife at home that did all of that stuff. It wasn't set up for us. So we have to figure that out first. So once you know where you're going and what does great look like. So maybe I've got some clients that are working towards never working in school holidays. They're like, I'm going to run my business on the school terms. I'm like, awesome, let's build that. It's possible to build anything. You just have to figure out what you want. So that's the very, very first thing. What do you want? Let's figure it out. Let's work out what success looks like for you. And then we can work backwards to where you are today so that we can start looking at, so what's in your calendar? Where are you spending your time, focus, and energy that's not aligned with that business that you want to be building? We can slowly unpack it from there, because we put ourselves last. And so we are trying to run a business on an empty tank, on a low battery. And so everything takes you twice as long at least, and all that sort of stuff, and you just man, I look back now and I go, oh my goodness, it was crazy for how long I did that for. And now if I could stop every woman trying to do it on a half-assed battery, I would. And not only that, they're doing everything at home still as well. Like, I can't believe I'm still having this conversation in 2023. But not only are they exhausted from everything they're doing in the business, they're freaking going home and still doing like 70%. Like, that's the average number. 70% the load at home. Like, how is that okay? And I actually think it gets worse when you're in your own business because your job's considered flexible.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, especially when you have littles at home. I remember, just the amount of mom guilt when I first became an entrepreneur, because, even though my husband was working the exact same hours, he wasn't present. Right. So they didn't see him working. All they saw was me working. And they're thinking, you're supposed to be my playmate because you're home all day. I'm like, well, I'm trying to work just like your father is. He's just at a brick and mortar and I'm at home. And because I'm home, I get to take you to school and I get to get donuts or do whatever, but it is really the expectations. And I would say it's fair to say that most women, they put those on themselves. It's very rare that it's someone else telling you to do a 40-hour week in your business and come home and do 70% of the work. We just don't know how to ask for help and we don't know how to delegate.
Yeah. And I think
I've gotten really good at it, but there for a while it was not.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting, actually, because I never stepped into that role, but I watched my mum be in that role my whole life. And I was like, I will never do that. Love my dad. But like, he'll still be like, Gail, where's my singlet? Where's my short? I'm like, dude, like, you're in your 60s, get your own damn singlet. Like, and we laugh about it in our family, but I was like, I will not. That's not what I was doing. And so from right up front, it was like, here's all the stuff that needs to be done to run this home in terms of the physical tasks, but also the thinking that needs to go into it, like the meal planning and the ordering of food and the and now with a child, like, what birthday parties are happening this weekend and what after school activities and who's getting there and all that stuff. So the mental load and the physical load we shared from up front. And once we had a child, then we had to like rethink that and go, how does this get shared more? And I was having this conversation with someone the other day. If your partner, husband, whoever grew up in a household where mum did what my mum did, where they did everything and ran around and looked after them. And then you started doing it for them when you moved in together, got married, etc. They don't know what they don't know. Like they have no idea the load. And yet we have to, and it seems ridiculous we have to explain it, but we do have to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they've not been taught it. Like maybe they flatted for a little while with someone else or shared house. We call it flatting in New Zealand. I'm always conscious that we have
flatting,
that we have some weird slang in New Zealand. And when I'm talking to people in America, I'm like, oh, is that a New Zealand thing we say?
Yes, we don't say flatting here. We say roommates maybe, or roommates.
Yeah, okay, cool. So maybe they did that for a little while. The reality is, though, they haven't ever had the mental load or understood what's involved there. And so sitting down and getting really clear on what I would call that second shift in terms of the management tasks and the physical tasks is really, really important. And then going, hey, here's the load. How are we going to share it? And not just you don't want to manage your business and go home and be the manager at home.
No. Yeah. Yeah. It's not good for the relationship. It's like you can never turn off as an entrepreneur. When you go home, if you still feel like you have to manage, you're still kind of in that headspace. So then how can you actually be the mom, and be the wife? I mean, sometimes they get the leftovers, right? Because we're so burned out from all the other things. And I think there's a lot of mompreneurs who actually don't utilize the help of their children as well, because their mom did everything for them, and I think it's the state of our culture. Kids just get to do whatever they want to do and don't have any responsibilities. And so it just starts with simple things too. I mean, when your kids are younger, you're not going to ask them to like go out there and try to mow the lawn, but they can do the dishes. They can help put a load in the washer or take it out. I mean, just little things. So I think not only is it best to communicate to the spouse, but the kids as well. Like have an honest conversation. Like we're a team, right? It takes a team to run this house. It takes a team to run this business. Like we're all on one team. Everybody has a role to play, and really helping them to define, like, I know my youngest son, he can fold clothes better than I can. But my oldest, that's never going to be his job, because you walk in his room, it's like a tornado went off, right? And you walk into my other son's and it's like everything is in its place. It's crazy how different they are 3 years apart. So just really helping to celebrate their strengths too. And I think coming at that conversation with that and coming at that with your spouse and saying, hey, these are the areas you're really strong in. These are the areas I'm not strong in. Can you take this over and let me run this? It's just like you said, we just have to spell it out. We just have to be willing to have those conversations.
Yeah. And apologize. Like, I think we get to the point where we're angry.
Yeah.
As women that we're not getting the help. And I always say to my women, apologize for setting the expectation that you do it all, because you've trained everyone in your household that you will do it all. And now you're pissed that you're having to do it all.
You have to untrain yourself first and then them.
And then them. And that whole, we all live here, we all create the work here, we all do the work here. And that point about your family and the kids being able to help and do those things, so important, because we don't want to raise the next generation of people that go out into relationships that expect someone else to do it all for themselves. We want to raise functioning adults that go, hey, there's a whole load that happens to run a household. And whenever I build my home with someone, I want to make sure that I'm taking on my share of that so that we can have a great team, a great partnership going forward. And I think that you're setting your boys up for so much success in later life, because they get it. They don't look at it and go, well, that's mum's job, so I won't be doing any of that.
No, I better not hear them words ever come out of their mouth. I tell them, I'm like, I'm raising some good husbands. Some girls can be really, really blessed, because I mean, we work really hard at that, but I do want to raise them up to see that everybody has a role to play on the team. And I couldn't do all the things I do if I didn't have my supportive husband, and vice versa. So, that's the message that we want to send. So You mentioned that overwhelm starts at home, like feeling overwhelmed in your business, or maybe some overwhelm going on at home. Is this what you're specifically talking about? Just trying to do it all and not delegating?
Yeah. And so I think that's the thing. Like, more people come to me and they're like, I'm overwhelmed by my business. And I'm like, cool, let's have a look at that.
Yeah.
But overwhelm's not an isolated thing. It doesn't just pop up when you get to work and go, oh, hi, be overwhelmed now. It actually is built up over, the day. Like, if you just think about from the moment you wake up to even before you like sit down at your desk for the day, how much thinking and decision making and options have you been through before you get there? So no wonder your poor brain's exhausted. You've made 100, most people, more than 100 decisions by the time you sit down at your desk. And so we need to go and look at that and go, how do we make not just our business smarter in terms of reducing the mental load, but also the rest of our lives as well? And so the conversation we've just had about that second shift's really important in terms of sharing the load with everyone else. But also, let's not do stuff that doesn't like light us up.
Yeah.
When I started in business, I remember having Jodie and I started in business at the same time. And when we bought the second one, I remember having an argument about cleaning the house, and was talking to the person that we'd bought the business off. She was still working with me in the business. And I said, oh, I'm so sick of fighting about cleaning the house. And she goes, why are you cleaning the house? And I'm like,
hire someone.
Yeah. She's like, why didn't you hire someone? And I was like, oh, penny drop. Like, I was in my 20s. Yeah. I was like, oh, penny drop. Like, oh, and the crazy thing is, back when I had roommates, when we shared, when I was working in the big city, I was like, we had a cleaner that used to come once a week and they would do like a clean through the house. I was like, okay. I was like, oh, we couldn't afford that. And, that's like what the rich and famous people do. They have help around the house. And I had all this spiteful commentary around having a cleaner. And then stopped having that spiteful commentary and got a cleaner. And I think we started off back then with a cleaner once a fortnight. So I was like so excited to get home on that Friday.
Oh, yes. The best day ever. You're like, nobody have anything. Nobody touched anything.
And I don't think we spent very much. I think it was like $50 or $75. Like, it was cheap. And now I have a cleaner come 3 days a week. Like, in the life goals, the cleaner comes every day, so that like we just walk out of the kitchen in the morning after breakfast, and when I come back later, it's magically clean. And that's been a game changer, because I don't love to clean. I love to have a clean house, but I do not love to clean. Like the outcome, not the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of things, for listeners today, just be thinking about like everything that you are doing. Are they things that someone else could do? Is it, I think that's the thing. We think, well, number one, we think it's going to be too expensive, or only I can do that. That's a pride thing. There are plenty of other people that could do some of the things and probably do it better if you're willing to outsource and delegate. And house cleaner was the very first thing I invested in, because I remember as a child growing up and having to spend my Saturdays dusting the house with my mom, or going out in the yard and, raking the yard. And while that was great for my mom and my dad, like, I'm not no shame on them, but that's not what I wanted to do. And I knew my time was more valuable somewhere else. And one of my coaches said to me years ago, and it's always stuck with me, she said, if more money doesn't give you more time, you don't need more money. If more money doesn't give you more time, you don't need more money. More time to spend with your family, or more time to work on those things in your business that only you can do. Like, if you're getting more money, but it's not giving you more time, you don't need more money. And so for that just really spoke to someone. So delegate. Like, what's one thing you can outsource today is to stop being Superwoman, because Superwoman becomes super worn out woman. I think Lisa Turkey said that. So no one's trying to wear a cape today, right? Let's get rid of the cape and
absolutely.
Just be real with ourselves.
Yeah, it's little things like the laundry. Like, the laundry can go to a laundromat for next to nothing. I was like, I never thought of that when I was talking with a friend in business. And then, we don't, in New Zealand, we have this thing called like food boxes. So that does all the meal planning and just shows up with the menu cards. And the cool thing about that for us was Scarlett loves to cook, but neither Johnny nor I would ever cook from a recipe. So now she can cook from the menu card. And the items are all there. All that sort of stuff. So there's so much you can outsource. When Scarlett started catching the bus to school, it was a game changer for us, because, that driving to and from school takes up time that you could win back. And then we could have, when she got home from school, we could actually have present time doing stuff. Like, we can go to the beach and have a swim or whatever. We can go and do things together. And I think that, that whole list is really important.
Yeah. Well, it gives someone else an opportunity to use their strengths to serve and to have a job, so you're actually hiring someone else and giving them income for their families when you hire them to do some of these things that are not in your wheelhouse or you just don't like doing them. Right.
Yeah.
I don't like to cook. I haven't hired a chef yet. That's a big goal. I would love to do that. But my husband actually likes to cook. So he does a lot of it, but not me.
Yeah. Totally get that.
Hey, friend. So you have been trying to make some shifts this year. Maybe you set some resolutions and you're just feeling stuck. You don't feel like you're making progress, or you're just not sure what to do. And you've heard me say this before, but being stuck is a mindset, not a position. And this is where a coach comes in to support you. Because here's what I know to be true about you, friend. If you could have done it alone, you would have already done it, period. And as a life coach and a certified PDP professional, I specialize in using a research-based personality and performance survey called the ProScan to illuminate how your unique personality and natural strengths, your work and life environments are influencing real-time performance. So here's what you need to do. Go to the link in the show notes and book your free clarity call to learn more about how I can support you in your goals. I can't wait to illuminate your strengths, cultivate your confidence, and elevate your life. So a year of no, moving from a to-do list to my I don't do list. I love that. And I talk about that a lot with my clients. Like, we're going to, like, you're so big on your to-do list, we're going to create a not to-do list, because there's so many things that you're doing. So can you talk a little bit about that when you're talking with your clients about that? Like, how do you help them?
Oh, yeah. So this was such a big one. I can't even remember who it was I saw. It was a writer, and she said, as women, we're constantly putting up on a pedestal women that do it all. We're always posting and talking and shouting about the things we are doing. And people's misconception is that you're doing that on top of all the things that they're already doing. Like, they're like, oh, I should be doing that too. Let me add that to my list. And basically she said, we need to start saying these are all the things I don't do. And I was like, that's genius. Like, here's the list of things I don't do. Like, I don't, over here it's a thing that they sometimes fundraise, or they go on school events and you do some baking for it. And I'm like, I don't always bake for that. Like, Scarlett's old enough now, she can do her own baking. But pre that age, sometimes I'd go to the shop and buy a pack of biscuits, and like zero guilt about that stuff.
I might put it on a pretty platter so no one knows. I'm just kidding. I literally will show up with the price tag still on it, probably. Here's your cookies.
Exactly. So I do stuff like that. I don't do every school event. Like, I say to Scarlett, like, what matters to you that mum's at, and what doesn't matter to you? Like, there's some things that she's like, I can take or leave whether you're there, and other things that she's like, this is really important to me, mum. Like, I want you to be there. And so we had a conversation around what was important to her, and what does a great mum look like. Newsflash, it wasn't what I thought was on the list. So there was a whole lot of stuff I was racing around doing, and so we took all that off. And then there was a whole lot of stuff in my business that I was like, I'm doing all this stuff because someone somewhere along my journey told me I should do it, or I have to do it, or you must do it. And I kind of went through it all and went, there's a whole lot of stuff here I don't think I need to do either. And so we started adding to the list that way. But it really came out of, I was a yes girl. Like, I grew up the eldest of 4 girls. I was constantly being told to be the bigger person and be the good girl and all those sorts of things. And so I was. And when someone asks a good girl a question and I'll ask them if they can do something or they can help with something, what's the answer?
Yes.
Always yes. And so I had a reputation for saying yes. If someone asked me for help, I said yes. And so people were very well trained to come and ask me. And so the way that I got to the I don't list was this, listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and he said that unless it's a hell yes, it's a no.
Yep.
Oh, I do so much that's like I can do it, but it really should have been a no. And so I was like, I'm going to do a year of no. I'm going to unless it's a hell yes, it's a year of no. And I did, and it was amazing. And I got so much pushback.
So, of course. Because we've teach people how to treat us, and you've taught them that you are the yes girl, so they're going to keep coming back to you. So the first time you say no, they're probably like, kind of give you that look. And we're so afraid of that. We're so afraid of that look, and we're so afraid of getting that pushback. But that's where getting that clarity in the beginning and understanding this is what's important to me. I love that you said you talked to your daughter because that's super important. We put so much like imposed guilt and expectations of what our kids really want when have you even asked them what's important to them? You don't have to be at everything. They don't want you at everything. They really don't. You think they do. So I love that. And yeah, you definitely get pushback. So be prepared, ladies. If you're going to go through this year of no, you're going to get some pushback. And how'd you handle that? So someone's thinking, well, how'd she handle that?
Yeah, so I had to learn different ways to say no, because that whole flat out no thing was like, oh, go outside, get in the sweats and you're like, that's a word I don't use very often, except for my child, right? Like,
right, yeah, terrible twos.
Yeah. I was using it with the people that really didn't need to hear it, and I needed to use it with some other people, and so I had to find some gentler ways for me, not for them, but for me, of saying no. And so this like, I don't have capacity for that right now. Hey, that's a super cool opportunity. Can we talk about it in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever the time frame was? And then actually I started to get kind of like, I was like, man, these people feel like they're entitled to my time and my energy, and in some cases my money. They're not entitled to that stuff. And so then I started to get more firm in it. And actually my year of the no turned into 2 years of saying no to basically everything. And it just kept clearing space. So over time, I just got more and more space back in my calendar. And then I sort of had to have that, the discipline to not fill it back up again, because it's very find space to go, I'll just put that back in. So, yeah, I think it was really learning that their reaction to my no was just a reflection of what was going on for them, not me. And that I was allowed to be in control of my time, and that what was going on for them and their personal reaction to it, their emotional reaction to it often was what was going on for them. Like they had a clear expectation that I was going to help. And when I said no, they didn't have they didn't have a next step. They didn't have a next person that they could go to, because I'd been the last person and the first person on the list for a long time. And so you just have to kind of work through that and go, I know that I've said this kindly. I know that I've set this boundary and I've reinforced it multiple times with this person. It's okay for me to keep saying no, and until such time as they hear it. And eventually they do. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah. And I think you can also head some of that off. Like if you know there's like a handful of people that you've overcommitted to, or you're kind of been in that routine of saying yes, to go to them ahead of time and just say, hey, I have some new goals for this year. I've had to do that before, and there's some things that I'm going to have to cut off, take off my plate so I could focus on that. I mean, I think sometimes instead of waiting for them to come to you and then you have to like say no, you can just go up to them immediately and just say, hey, here are some things that I'm working on, and I wanted to let you know I'm not going to be as available to do this or that or whatever. So you're kind of heading off that what we feel is confrontation when we have to say no.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of dealing with it. I also think it's okay to back out of something when you've said yes to it.
Oh, yeah.
To turn around and say later on, you know what, I know I said I would do this and I'm really sorry, and I do not have the capacity to do it, and I'm going to have to pass it back, is totally okay as well. Because we, if we were running a marathon and we hurt our leg, we wouldn't keep running. We just wouldn't keep running on a broken ankle. We'd stop. Yet we keep running on. I'm burnt out emotionally and mentally. We keep doing all this stuff for everyone else because we feel like we have to. And so I think that one's super important. And the reality is, when you start setting boundaries, which as women we didn't have a lot of when we started doing this stuff, people will lean up against them. And so just setting boundaries is never enough. You have to go, this is my boundary, and I'm reinforcing it time and time again. And at some point, sometimes you have to say, actually, I've been really clear. Like, that was a boundary. You keep leaning up against it. You can either back away from my boundaries, which I've been expressly clear in, making sure you've been clear in communicating them, or we're going to have to talk about how this relationship works going forward, because people that keep leaning up on your boundaries just don't respect you enough. Yeah. And that's a conversation you have to have. And that's a really hard one, that starts to shift you end up with a smaller core group, I think, in your life as you start to do that, because some people just don't understand what boundaries are.
No, they say, if you don't have limits, the takers don't have any. So know your limits, because the takers don't have any limits. So you have to know, like, what is your boundary? And just because someone gets upset when you try to, protect that boundary doesn't mean you should have said yes. So I think that's the other thing. Like, just because someone's getting mad at you or upset doesn't mean you should have said yes to that. It just means they have their own issues that they have to deal with. And it's their outcome and their response is not your responsibility at all.
Absolutely not.
Your responsibility is to communicate it clearly, to know that it's in alignment with what your family needs, what you want, what matters most to you, and the rest is up to them. That's their drama they have to deal with.
What's that? On the assumption you said it kindly, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
There are ways to communicate boundaries in a way that might get you an emotional reaction.
Oh, yes, for sure.
I'm going to assume that most of your listeners are good at communicating that clearly and kindly. And if that's the case, then you're good. Like, that's their thing.
Yeah. And it just goes back to, you have to be really clear on what's important to you. It's really hard to set that boundary and stick to it when you don't even know why you're setting it. Because then that's where all the emotions come in, right? You're like, well, why am I saying no? Should I have said yes? But if you know, my time right now is like, my son is a senior. And so he's going to be graduating in May. And there's a lot of things that I'm saying no to this year because he's going to be leaving the house, and I'm in denial of it, first of all, but he just got his college acceptance yesterday. So we were super excited about that. But like, he's going to be gone, and I'm like trying to hold on to all of these moments and spend time with him. And so there are things professionally and personally that I've chosen to say no to because I want to spend that time with him. So, but I'm really clear on that. If I wasn't clear on that, then when people are asking me to say things or do things, it'd be harder for me to say.
Yeah. And that's that decision filter, like you're saying, that for this year, for this time, for this season, the decision filter is, does it take time away from my eldest because my eldest is leaving the house? And if it does, and it's impacting, like, obviously if it doesn't impact, if he's like, well, actually, Mum, I'm out with my friends this weekend. We're not hanging out.
He's definitely more like that. I'm more like, stay here. And he's like, Mom, I'm going with the friends. What you talking about?
So it's like, okay, well, so he's hanging out with his friends this weekend, so I can hang out with my friends. Right. But we have these decision filters that allow us to go, is it a yes or is it a no? And if I say yes to it, how is it impacting the other most important things in our lives, right? So like, if I say yes to hanging out with Scarlett, am I saying no to going and doing something with my husband? And I might be saying no to something in my business, which are kind of my highest life priorities, or no to looking after myself in some way, shape or form. And you kind of have to look at that, and you're constantly doing that. Okay, what is the most important? I think about it in terms of, like, if you were juggling balls, what are the ones that are made of glass that you can't put down? And what are the ones that, like, if you drop, let go of them, they'll bounce and then they'll just sit on the ground. You can just pick them up and bring them back in later. And those relationships, like your one with your son, like, those are glass ones. Those are precious. You want that. That's a relationship you want your whole life, his whole life. So that's a ball we're not dropping, especially not when you know that, he's going to go off and have his college life and then his own life. And as that gets busier and busier, there's less time and capacity for you in your relationship, which is great because it means we're like tick, tick in terms of doing parenting, great parenting right there, right? And, like, oh, they're off.
I know. It goes by so fast. 18 years have gone by super fast. So the days are long, mamas, but the years are short. So cherish all of them. Decision fatigue, I think, is something really common as entrepreneurs. We are having to make so many decisions as a mompreneur when it comes to personal and professional life. So when you think about your business, specifically to your business, like, how do you filter out what are the most important things I need to do in my business today or this week or this month? Because there's a lot of things, like you said, there's a lot of things we can be doing. We can get really busy as entrepreneurs, but are we in business? So what would you say for you are like those key decisions that you make every day? I'm going to do this in my business. Is it the same every day for you, or do you feel like it changes? I mean, business is always evolving and changing, especially social media, but there are some core things that we do in our business that we need to make sure we're focusing in on.
Absolutely. So for starters, I don't make decisions about what I'm going to do every day. So on a Thursday, it's actually Thursday here today. So today, when I've finished doing this with you, I will do what I call the power hour. And it's my $1 million meeting with myself for an hour every week. And so I invest 1 hour to save the other 167. Right. And so I do that on a Thursday. morning for me because I'm better in the mornings, and I plan the whole next week, Monday to Sunday next week. And so when I get up today, I don't think about what am I going to do in my business this week. I just do what my calendar tells me. And that is aligned with a couple of things. It's aligned with what I call the critical success factors in my business. So in every business and every role in your business actually has somewhere between 1 and 3 critical success factors. So for me as the leader of my business, I have to be leading and growing and developing my team. I have to be selling, like I'm still in the sales role of my business, and I have to be delivering a great product, creating great content, coaching my clients really well, showing up for them at high vibe. So those are like my 3 critical success factors. And if I don't do those at all, or I do them really badly, my business will fail.
Yeah.
So every week I want to be looking at those 3 areas and checking in and going, how am I tracking on those things? Am I being consistent? What's working for me? What's not? Because we all have areas that we lean towards, right? I love to build systems and processes and build a better business. I'm naturally going to do that stuff. I love coaching my clients, and I love putting frameworks in that make it easy for them to build their businesses. I love that I get to coach them, but you have to do this sneaky bit out the front called marketing and sales to get those people, which I can do, but it's certainly not my first love, right? So I have to be checking in constantly, and that's a piece that I'm constantly working on. So I do that one. I also use what I call highest life priorities. So what matters most to me, and I have again, I set a very limited number. I say to people, you can have between 3 and 5, and that's it. You can't have any more plates than that in the air for this chapter. And for this chapter, I'm tapped out, right? Like by the time I've looked after me first, and then my marriage, and then my relationship with my child, and then my business, and then done a little bit of wealth building on the side to make sure that we can go and do the things that we want to do as a family and contribute in the way that we want to contribute to our community. I'm done. There's nothing else. There's no other capacity in there for anything else in this chapter. Now, Scarlett's 11, so like you, I'll be thinking 7 years from now, she'll be on her way out. And I imagine over the coming years, she'll need less and less from me as she gets a little older. And so potentially as that takes up more time capacity, I can put some other things back in. So maybe I'll get back into doing some community work and those sorts of things. So that's how I filter it. And so for me, it means that in that 1 hour, I've kind of made all the decisions of how I'm spending my time for the whole next week. So it just freed up my brain for so much. I make decisions that take all the other decisions away. So my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. every morning. I don't snooze it. I just get up straight away. I get dressed. I have systems, for want of a better word, even just to run my life, like the automated pieces of my life, because then I don't have to make decisions there. Because when you look at decision-making fatigue and the studies that have been done on it, you only get so many decision-making points every day. And then after that, it's not that you stop making decisions, it's that you make the easiest decision, or the least amount of consequences. And that's not always the best for you and your business. And so at that point, you really have to think about, well, how do I take off the load so that when I'm in my business thinking about, okay, how can I best build this framework so it's easy for my clients to follow? Or how do I best market this new product that I'm going to serve? Or, when I'm looking at those things, or how should I hire this person? How should I onboard them? I can use all of my creative decision-making powers there to make great decisions and deliver a great outcome, rather than, wasting it on, should I snooze my alarm, or where did I leave my keys, and where's my phone, like as I'm leaving the door. Like those are still decision points that tire that decision-making muscle, but they're not actually moving you forward. So
that's so good.
I think that's the big one.
Yeah. So good. And I think the cool thing again about bringing on different people is, you just said you spend a power hour, and for some it's like it's an everyday thing, and we're all created different with different brains that function and have different ways of systematizing things. And so if someone's listening and they're like, wow, that sounds really interesting, like give it a try, give it some time to work. but just know, you have to know yourself too. A system's not going to work if you're not going to use it. So if the power hour sounds like, oh, that sounds amazing to have all this decision made. It's like right now, I'm like, God, that sounds really cool. Just have all those decisions made and not have to think about all those things. I can just get to my, because I'm a worker. So like I'm probably the opposite of you when it comes to thinking. Like, I don't love the thinking and the thought process and the strategy and all that. Like, someone just tell me what to do and I will do it. I'm a worker.
Yeah.
But for someone else who's listening, they might think, oh, that's a really cool idea. So thank you for sharing that with us. So as we wrap up, what are you most excited about right now in your business or life?
Oh, so many things. So just like really excited for the women that are coming on board and they're just getting back so much time, and the fact that we can find that really, really quickly. And then that kind of looking at it and going, wow, look at the financial implications of that for me and for the people that I love and for my clients, my customers. Like, I can actually give them a better experience. So I'm super excited about what's happening there. And I'm getting together in real life with my clients in a couple of weeks, which is always so exciting.
Oh, so fun.
Over the last few years in New Zealand particularly, we've had a lot of restrictions on being able to meet up face to face. So it's kind of really nice to see my clients, get a big hug and, eat some great food together. And we bring in some guest speakers and we have a couple of days together, which is really nice. I'm excited about that. And I'm off to Hawaii later this year, actually coming to your neck of the woods in July. And as a reward for me kicking some goals in my business, my daughter and my husband are both fanatical about sharks. Me, not so much.
Oh, I love sharks.
Okay, cool, right?
So I get it.
You can go to my place and dive with the sharks.
Put me in the cage with the great white, please. Or not in with the great white, but in the water with the great white around me. I'm in heaven. Seriously, it's like a bucket list thing to do. Yeah.
So this is on Miss 10's bucket list. And so we're off to do that. In fact, at the moment, if you ask her what she's going to be a photographer that she thinks takes photos of sharks to help save them in the world. So we're off to do that, have a bit of time. We've not been to Hawaii before. So
it's beautiful.
We're all water babies. So it sounds like our sort of place. So those are kind of two, bit business, bit life, because they all kind of merge in together, don't they?
They do. They're awesome. Well, if you had the opportunity, and you kind of do right now here on the podcast, just to share like one thing that you would wish all mompreneurs would understand or, take home from this, like what's the one thing, if you could just stand on the mountaintop and share it with them, what would you want to share with them?
Sort your time out first. Where you spend your time, focus, and energy tells you and everyone else what's most important to you. Don't do what I did and tell the people you love the most that you're too busy, because all you're truly saying to them is you're just not that important to me. And if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't ever say those words to Johnny or Scarlett for those first 5 years. You only get 18 summers with your children. Don't sacrifice them for a business, because your business you can actually build a business that doesn't require you to do that. Yeah, that is the truth. And that is the truth that needs to be shouted, from the mountaintops, that you can build a business around your family instead of the opposite, Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, Sarah. This was really, really awesome. We'll put all of the links to how you can connect with Sarah and anything she has going on that she'd want you to know about. We'll put that in the show notes for you. But this was a really fun conversation. I loved having my first New Zealand. Is that what you say? What do you say? A New Zealand, or what do I? Oh, we would say we often say we're a Kiwi, which is
a Kiwi. My first Kiwi.
Your first Kiwi, because obviously that's our native bird and things like that. But I'm a New Zealander. Yeah.
New Zealander. Okay, there we go. My first Kiwi and New Zealander. Thank you so much. This was super fun.
My pleasure.
All right, friends, I'll catch you on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.